Okay. Come on in. Terrific. Okay, that's fantastic. Just find a seat and we'll make a start on the final session of the day. Thank you all for coming back. See, those threats always work, don't they? Or did you meet the policeman as I promised? Thank you. We have one fantastic final panel session to close the day, and we're talking about, well, engaging girls in STEM. And this is the fantastic representation we have of our female leaders in the world of STEM. I'm, as you'll notice, to one side, leaving them very much to the foreground here. But I will be asking as many questions as I can in our half an hour. You'll see there's a big panel. This is a big panel in half an hour, but we're going to do as best we can to get through as much as we can so that we can get to some of the nitty-gritty on the subject. Let me introduce you to everyone. Elizabeth Gaines, Chief Executive Officer with Fortescue Metals Group. Sharon Warburton is the Chairman and Non-Executive Director with Fortescue Metals Group as well. Then we've got, well, I'm just going to go down my list. Erica is just the second one from the right, and she is Business Leader and Company Director. Sherry Dew is right in the middle in the blue. She's the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer with Woodside. Fiona Vines is Head of Inclusion and Diversity and Workforce at BHP. And Sarah Kaplan is a partner with National Skills Lead at PwC. And finally, Lisa Rodgers, who you'll know, is the Director General, Department of Education. First of all, give them a big round of applause. So 7 on the panel, 2 microphones. A little bit of a challenge, but we'll do our very best. I want to start the conversation by just gauging where you feel the temperature is at the moment on the subject. So if I talk about there's a push towards encouraging more girls to engage in STEM careers, how do you think we're doing on that? And on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being fantastic, 0 being pretty ordinary, give us your score on that, how you think personally you think that is. And how could we improve that right now? What would make all the difference? So maybe since you have a microphone, Elizabeth, you can start. What would you say out of 10? Where are we?
Oh, look, I think we're probably about a 4. We're certainly not doing as well as we could be. I think that's more about, I think, also women in the workforce more broadly and improving that gender diversity. But when it comes to STEM, there's a lot more that we need to do. I think these sort of opportunities, looking at the children today going around the booths and actually seeing what a career in mining, for example, could look like is a fantastic way to really ignite that imagination, because it's actually an industry that's incredibly innovative. We're using technology, AI. There's a range of careers in STEM. And I mean, my own background, I started as a music student at Perth Mod, so it certainly wasn't really a STEM path. But if you get the right mentoring and the right career advice, then I think that's a really important part. So teachers have such an important role to play in terms of encouraging all students, male and female, to really think about a career that encompasses STEM. Really
Given
important.
You've just given us a 4, is that an improvement on the last couple of years?
No, I don't think we've made much progress. Probably was about the same a couple of years ago. I'm not sure we've made as much progress, and I think that's part of why we're having this conversation. We actually do want to see more women, more people more broadly getting involved in STEM careers, but we certainly want to see young women and girls to be really encouraged to pursue a career in the STEM disciplines.
Thank you. Sharon.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. I will talk very fast because we don't have long. I would say it's probably not quite a 4, and I would say we've gone backwards in the last few years. I think it's very sexy to consider a data or autonomy-related STEM, and I see a lot of conversation around that. Not so much what I would say the more traditional STEM fields, and some of our initiatives and focus areas like climate change have probably, I would say, have had a negative potential impact on the breadth of STEM roles and how we can participate in those. What else would I say? I would say, as Elizabeth has in relation to broader diversity, I think in this area we see talk, we don't see action. nowhere near enough action. And I love the chatter, but I think if we all took away and went home with what are the actions that I'm personally going to lead. I was delighted to be invited to a school recently where I spoke in my high vis to 700 11 and 12-year-old female students about my role in the mining sector. And that was one person's initiative from someone in your sector, and it was an amazing morning, and that's an action rather than just talking about it. So more action, I say.
Does it make you angry?
Sorry?
Does it make you angry, the situation as it is?
Oh, look, I don't get angry. I see it more as an opportunity, and we need to just focus more on the opportunity to do more. I don't like to think I wake up getting angry about much things these days.
Get even. Fiona Vines.
Thank you. I would say it's a 3. I think we're at a 3 and would agree that it's probably gone backwards. Certainly at BHP, we have a goal to be gender balanced by 2025, and there is no way we're going to get there unless we see more women and girls choosing STEM-related subjects. And I think that as a nation, we need to have a different kind of conversation about the sort of skills that these jobs can lead you to, the sort of lifestyle that these jobs can give you, particularly for young women and girls as they seek to be financially independent. So this is a really important area for us. I think that one of the things we'll get on to talking about is how do we address this issue, and I think that to sit here today with so many people from different parts of the sector is an important first step. We have to partner and work together to be able to solve this between industry, government and the education sector, and I think that that's the action that's actually required to help us move from a 3 to where it needs to be.
Okay, the scores aren't that positive at the moment. Sarah?
I would agree with the 3.
Oh, goodness.
And I find it really strange because there's never been a better time for STEM to be sexy and something you want to do, because we've got young people growing up as digital natives. They're using technology. They're developing an interest in how it works, and yet somehow or other we bash that out of them as they go through the education system to the point where they don't want to pursue a STEM career. And so I feel like we've got an opportunity to build on here, and we need to think about how we do that. How do we keep that light going that we've ignited when people are really young, and help people understand the huge range of jobs and careers that you can have in STEM? And I think I was talking earlier about the fact that I think the word STEM sometimes is a barrier, and it scares people off. They think it's hard, or they think it is, difficult jobs or jobs that they wouldn't want to go into. And we've got to break that down and show that just about every job has some element of STEM, whether it is the digital side or whether it's the maths that underlies how something works, whatever it is. I'm a mathematician myself, and I chose to do maths at university because I just love maths. It wasn't for any other reason. And, I think we just need to be able to help people see if you think about the world of nutrition that you were talking about earlier, Ruben, there is so much science in that, and so many different aspects that are about the well-being agenda that young people are really into at the moment. How can we use that as an igniter of passion about it?
Great. Okay. Sherry, you're going to give it a 5+, yeah?
I'll give it a 3.5, law of averages. So I agree with all of these comments that were made, and just maybe a couple to add to that from my own perspective. One is, I think that there's still a whole lot more that can be done, not only about providing STEM to children at all levels as they come through the ranks, so that they start to build those dreams and those kernels of interest very young during their educational process, but also involving parents in that, because there's so much influence, obviously, and rightly so, that's coming out of the home, that's coming out of, perhaps societal micro inequities around what is a good job for a girl and what is a good job for a boy, and what are the appropriate environments for a girl to work in. Is it in an office, or could a girl walk out in the field, or offshore? I think there's so many opportunities there to help parents understand that, so they can be having those conversations with their children as they're growing up. The other piece that in Woodside we're starting to early days grapple with, but we see is becoming really compulsory in terms of actually even further broadening the discussion around STEM, is that we really need to start talking about STEAM. when you look at technology and the way that that is disrupting everything we do, from engineering work to finance work to commercial work, no matter what the case may be, machines are learning so quickly that there is this augmented intelligence reality that has huge opportunity. But what it means is that things that are traditionally more around morals and ethics and philosophy, liberal arts, those are actually going to be the skill traits that honestly I think employees should be looking for more now, but will be absolutely necessary in even in 10 years time, where I don't believe that any of the jobs that exist today will still exist in the form that they have been known for a very long time now. And so it's going to be, again, moral norms, collaboration skills, addressing conflict, problem solving, creativity, and the arts have such a role to play with that, but they're going to need to be combined with those fundamental knowledge of STEM. And so it really is going to be STEAM that we need to bring in for boys and girls as we find a way to meet the opportunities of that future.
Sherry, thank you. Erica.
Thank you, James. Look, compared with when I was a girl, which is a hell of a long time ago now, it's about a 30. But where it should be for everyone, boys and girls, is probably a 2. Because there's so much need for STEM-based skills or STEAM-based skills going forward into the new digital world. And unless we make that exciting and engaging and people understand the potential for them to have really fun jobs and answer questions and be curious and, dare I say, fail along the way and pick up their bucket and go forward, then we're not doing them any favours at all. So I don't think we're doing very well, but we could have never had a group of science teachers like this 55 years ago. So I do congratulate that we are attracting really good people into teaching, but we need to give the resources. This is an experiential type life that's coming forward. We've got to be able to ask questions and be critical of what we're reading on the internet, because everyone just looks up Dr. Google or something and believes anything and thinks the world's still flat. So.
Thank you. Lisa.
I did hear something about Santa Claus as well this morning. I was a bit disturbed about it. But so sitting here with a science background, I'd say in terms of where I'd like it to be at an 8 sitting here. I'd say it's about a 2, which is really disappointing. So when you look at the kind of pure routes into science, we know that the number of grads going into pure maths science subjects is dropping across the board. Girls are, I think, about a 16th of that. But we've got something going on in terms of the economy as well and careers. So we've got a lot of kids, they're walking into a gig economy, and that's really, really tough. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of innovation out there with a lot of, young, awesome young women setting up companies in things like, what's that awesome one? Code Like a Girl. So, there's some really awesome innovation that we're starting to see. So we need to build on it. We are in a different economy. I think across the board, in a few years' time, almost every single job will have a STEM component. So the world will solve it for us anyway. Having said that, though, we've still got those stereotypes around STEM just isn't for girls. But we've brought about 4,000 kids here today. So it's 4,000 of our kids that have turned up today because they're seriously interested in STEM. And they're really interested in STEM because the leaders and the teachers and all of our support staff are backing these kids to enter careers into STEM. So do I think we'll get to an 8? Yeah, I will. I reckon we will. And the education system is really giving it a good kick in terms of getting kids into STEM.
How quickly can we move that up a notch? Because you're optimistic, but what are we talking about, 10, 20, 30 years, or can we do it more rapidly?
Yeah, no, rapid. It's got to be rapid. So, if you think about the kids today, they're walking out of schools and they're really, really struggling to get work. And so they are faced with an absolute reality that is going to drive them into a particular path. And it's not long before people start to respond. I don't want to have to wait and do that. And I think, on behalf of all the principals here, I don't think the principals are waiting for that. I think they're taking the opportunities, harnessing the challenge that we've got in front of them, and getting girls and kids interested in STEM. And it's just awesome to see.
Let's get a personal response. I mean, Sharon, when someone asks you about what it's like working in, this world, how do you personally connect and inspire them to dig a bit deeper and to go further with that inquiry and that curiosity?
I've always believed that storytelling is so powerful, and to stand up and be able to say, I grew up in a caravan in northwest WA, and I now, on a daily basis, help lead companies valued at over $100 billion, and then have the opportunity to explain how through education and work experience I got to that is incredibly powerful. And then I use that voice also to explain the wonderful role models that I've had throughout my career. I've never ever had a female boss. Most of my career has been in construction and resources, and to explain the wonderful people that I've worked with and currently work with, and how inspiring they are, and the safe environments that I've worked in around the world. I think that storytelling is so powerful and just breaks down. I can see it melting stereotypes and assumptions that kids might hear at home, or I don't know, they read it, but I agree with the comment around the parents. I think at home they're getting a lot of these stereotypes, because when I get the Q&A at the end of the sessions, that's what they ask me: is it safe? What's it like? Or my dad said, or my mum said, that girls, it's hard for girls to do these roles. Storytelling is so powerful, and I think every time I go to a school or speak where there's children, I can see the impact it's having, and I think it's a real action item that we can all do more of. And, this group alone can give you enormous long lists of people who would love to get out and share stories about the wonderful work and role models that they've had.
Elizabeth, what role does the corporation play in this? Because it almost needs to take some really proactive steps, do you think? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the role of the corporation is we need to tell our story, and I think we do a good job of telling it to investors, to other stakeholders, shareholders. I'm not sure we are doing enough to get that message out, and there's more we can do, but that's a two-way street. Because most people don't realise that our autonomous fleet, for example, travels the equivalent of 2.6 times around Australia every day without a driver. And that level of automation, we have more skills and experience in autonomy here in Western Australia than the Teslas, the Alphabets, the other companies in the US. So we've got to tell the story about the innovation that's happening right here in Western Australia. And we've got to also avoid, because there's a lot of people who sort of talk about mining being boom and bust. And that way parents get worried, if you choose a career going down a certain path, that you might come out of your degree during what they'd term the bust cycle. Well, reality is we're actually we're in a different phase now. Mining has been developed. We did have a period of construction across the whole industry, but we've now got a steady stream of reinvestment, and we're all going down that path of whether it's autonomy, the use of data, AI. So there's so much more in terms of the outlook. So somehow we've got to get that message out. But I think to Sharon's point, it's about having that opportunity to go and tell those stories.
But how can they be encouraged to come and work in an industry like yours where they may be replaced by a machine?
Well, we haven't actually made one person redundant as a result of our automation program. And that's a key success factor. And it's a really good point, because we see technology as the enabler. At the end of the day, it still boils down to people. And people is the key to Fortescue. It's our culture and values. So what we've done is we've worked with team members who might be affected by automation, people who drive trucks. And we've actually, as we've had normal transit, sort of people moving through the organisation, we've actually offered retraining, redeployment, career nights up on site where people can see, actually, I can move from being a truck driver to working in the remote control centre. So it's a question of actually engaging and communicating and showing that there are pathways. So that's been really critical to our success with the rollout of our autonomy.
Thank you. Fiona, how worried you are, given the fact that we have such innovation technology and such advanced sort of science in play here in WA, and yet all of the panel scored, basically a lot less than 5 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely worried. I mean, the reality is, as Elizabeth was saying, that the technology changes are really changing the face of mining and are going to make it possible, actually, for more women to participate. But we need to develop that pipeline of diverse talent from across the nation to take those new roles in what is going to be a very new and different workplace. So I think there's a few things that we think about at BHP. I mean, firstly, we do have to tell the story about what the future looks like. And the future is actually here already. So we have automated trucks, but we also have a lot of really cool, new, interesting jobs that you can do in our organisations that mean maybe you don't have to go to site as much, that mean maybe you don't have to spend as long away from home, but you still get to go and you still get to work in those really exciting environments. We need to talk more about that. I think secondly, to the point around parents' and teachers' perceptions of mining, we have to face into the reality of that. We do need to do a lot of work on our brand and the perception of our industry. We need to convince everybody that it is safe, and we're doing a lot of work in our industry and in our organisations to build respectful cultures, to make sure the facilities are right for everybody, and to make sure the work can be done by anybody. And of course, the more women we have in our organisations, the faster that is going to happen. And then thirdly, we need to create different training and learning pathways for young people. I think it's a bit confusing at the moment about how you even get in. So as an example, the West Australian TAFE sector now offers the first nationally recognised qualification in automation. And that was a qualification that was designed by a few different mining organisations together with Southwest TAFE. And I think we need to talk about the different entry-level pathways that exist straight out of school. Maybe you've got a year of uni under your belt and you want to go and have some real-world experience. There's lots of different ways to come into the industry, and we need to do a better job of talking about that.
Thank you. Lisa, you have a microphone. I want to ask you, given the audience here, how do you think teachers and schools can develop girls to be actually interested and more importantly, confident in STEM?
I think, you think back to when you were very, very young and you're constantly asking why. And then eventually you're trained out of kind of asking why because you just become incredibly annoying. And I was one of those children that was a total girly swat. And, eventually I did stop bugging my parents and my teachers. But I think that in part is at the heart of it. So we need to make sure that our children, and particularly girls, continue to be curious about things and actually are allowed to continue to ask the hard questions. And let's face it, we all get up in the mornings, we all get dressed, we all look like we know what we're doing every single minute of every single day. But look, we don't. And so as adults, we also have to model that the world is a really complex and ambiguous place. And we don't always know. There isn't certainty. And that's at the heart of STEM. And girls need to be, particularly girls need to be encouraged and confident to keep asking those questions and continue to be curious, because there aren't answers to many questions in the world, and we need them to continue to discover those answers.
I think sometimes when you hear a personal story, it can be very compelling. Erica, what drove you to a career in STEM personally?
For me, it was my teacher, really. I had this most incredible teacher in high school who wanted to take a class from year 8 to year 12. And I was in year 8 at the time, so I got Malcolm Crosby, and he absolutely encouraged everyone who was doing science. And we had 4 out of 35 students were girls, which was really unusual for a high school in those days. And he just inspired it. And so I ended up loving chemistry and physics. So I went to university to do chemistry, and then needed a fourth, you did chemistry, maths and physics, and I needed a fourth unit. I did geology for fun, and I stayed in geology and had a ball. It's just, because it's about discovery, and it's about having to have some skill of all sorts, and to be able to be a detective about trying to find something. And even if you miss an ore body or it's not there, you don't know you've actually failed, because you only see this bit, you only see a little bit. So geology is like a continual detective story, and that's why I loved it so much, and I continue to enjoy the whole resource industry because we're producing stuff for good of mankind and make our phones work and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Driven by curiosity, which is a good way. Thank you.
Curiosity.
Thank you. Sharon, if we're going to wave a magic wand, and I'm going to give you a magic wand so that we can do something and there's an action to be taken from a conversation like this, in the next 12 months, what do you think will be the easiest thing that could really give a boost to seeing more females being inspired and taking up a world in STEM?
Well, I think, and going back to the earlier question, I think the time to change this is now.
Yeah.
You know, I think probably all of the people on this panel and many other talented females around the world are just sick of waiting for things to catch up, and we're sick of thinking about what's going to happen in 10 years or 20 years. So I guess, you know, the one thing I could ask out of this group today is, you know, all of you touch many students all the time. Can you just please talk to every one of them? Talk to the boys, talk to the girls, do it all the time. Remind them that they can do anything. And really anything if they put their mind to it. Make school fun for them. You know, my mother was also a school teacher. In fact, at one point she was my school teacher, which was a very traumatic period for me because that was back in the days when you could still paddle. And from my recollection, I got paddled every day so that my mom wouldn't be showing favoritism. She doesn't agree with me, but nonetheless, that's another story. But what she did teach me is that school is fun. I don't ever actually remember talking to her about gender, so don't talk to girls about being a girl. Just talk to them about who they are as a human soul, and that they can go out there and do something and help plant those seeds. And then remind them that continuous education is the key to success in life, because like several have said on the panel, you know, we're in a period right now where you become you know, a dinosaur very, very quickly, no matter what job you're doing in any industry, if you're not continuously learning. And that is fun. And fun is also hard work, but that's actually the key to success in life. Because I think if we all have those conversations all the time with all of our kids, we can change it now. And not just for the girls, but for the boys as well, so that all of our young people can get the best out of their education, understand the importance of STEM, and also understand that continuous learning.
Okay, just
a very quick tip
just
to that suggestion that teachers talk to all of your students. There are some fantastic short videos on the Minerals Council of Australia website, which actually show young people, males and females, working out in our industry, and it brings the jobs to life. And I think it's a tough gig for you to have to stand in front of your students and try and explain it. There's some fantastic resources out there that might help with that.
Starting with Sarah, and this is a difficult one, but we're going to end with this question. What would you like males to do in this?
Males.
Yeah.
The same as females. I mean, just, you know, understand that that jobs are changing, that everybody has a huge amount of opportunity. I think I totally agree with you about the confidence and believing that you can do anything. Because I mean, I know in my career, I have taught maths and IT, I've been a logistics manager, I've run a pub, I have been a consultant, I've done so many different things, but they were all because I was looking for just a new thing to do, a new challenge. I was curious, like has been said so many times. And also, never felt like I had any limitations, that I could just turn my hand to anything. And I think that if you can give that to people in school, that feeling that, you know, you've got this toolbox of skills that you've learnt, that you are going to be able to adapt, and, you know, you might drive a vehicle now, but you might then next year be standing in a remote control centre operating it by an iPad. That'll happen again to all of us. We all have to be able to just believe we can learn a new set of skills and do something different.
Yeah.
So I think if males and females can help young people to get that confidence and ability, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I like the line, we're human souls at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter, does it? I could easily carry on this conversation. I'm sure you'd love to listen for a long time, but I know that when the bell goes at school, you tend to, you know, want to call it a day. And it is 3:15, and we're promising a sort of a prompt finish. So maybe it's a good opportunity to say thank you very much to our panel. It was a great way to end the day. It certainly could have been a longer debate. There were some fantastic comments, so I really appreciate your honesty on that topic. We are going to close, but I'll just say thank you to all of you for attending, for the presenters who are wonderful presenters today. Safe travelling. We will see you all tomorrow for those that are coming back. Are you all coming back tomorrow? Excellent. Hopefully you'll know which policeman to go to. Have a great night, and thanks very much for being here today.